Have you ever had one of those mornings when you crawl out of bed and you still feel exhausted? As though even though you slept through the night, your body didn't really get the rest that it needs? And maybe with that exhaustion comes a certain level of disappointment and discouragement where you find yourself questioning your very existence, wondering if the things that you do really matter and if it wouldn't just be better to forget the whole thing. Well, I had one of those days just a couple of days ago, and it was hard to battle the discouragement, but it really did confirm something that my spirit had already known. I need to carve out some real intentional rest for my soul this summer, and I hope that you'll join me. I'm calling it the Selah Summer. That little word Selah appears in the Psalms many times, and although the meaning is questionable, most scholars believe that it could be a musical marking that just means pause or stop, or an injunction to really think about what the Lord is saying. And I've just kind of appropriated that name for myself this year because summer for me opens a space of grace where I feel like I can be a little more intentional with my time. And so that's what I'm going to be doing this summer. And I hope you'll join me. And some of that involves taking the advice that Dr. Saundra Dalton-Smith shared in last week's podcast episode from her book, Sacred Rest. Recover your life, renew your energy, restore your sanity. Doesn't that sound great? Dr. Saundra says that rest, the real rest that we need, doesn't come from sleep or stopping all activity or taking that wonderful vacation that you long to have. Instead, it's recognizing where we have rest deficits and then begin to fill up that deficit to a healthy level. Dr. Saundra identifies the 7 types of rest as physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, social, sensory, and creative. And there's a wonderful quiz over at restquiz.com that you can take to help identify those levels that you might be lacking in. It was really helpful for me. And I want to unpack these 7 types of rest and the things that I'm going to be doing this summer to do my best to bring those levels back to a healthy place. The first type of rest that she identifies is physical, and she explains it like this. Physical rest is the chance to use the body in restorative ways to decrease muscle tension, reduce headaches, and promote higher quality sleep. And I got to tell you the honest truth, I am definitely lacking in this area. My sleep after menopause has been terrible. And while that might be TMI for you, I am really needing to figure this one out. And so this summer, I'm going to do several things. I'm going to really try to set aside the phone, turn off all screens before bed, at least an hour before, go for a short walk, stretch, cut out caffeine even earlier than I already have, maybe cut it out completely, because I really have to figure out this whole sleep thing. I know it's a big aspect of the exhaustion I feel. The second type of rest is mental, and she describes it like this. Mental rest is the ability to quiet cerebral chatter and focus on things that matter. I like that. Cerebral chatter. Oh my goodness, this girl has a whole lot of cerebral chatter going on. And for me, journaling really helps with that, just kind of getting it all out on the page, even making to-do lists or having a notepad beside your bed to jot down the things that you remember, just quieting our minds a little bit more. And sometimes for me, that is just taking it all to the Lord and just saying, God, here's everything that I need to do, everything that's on my heart and my mind. But Lord, I'm asking you for wisdom and I'm trusting that you're going to give it. Philippians 4:6-7 says, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything with prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. And the peace of God that transcends all understanding will guard your heart and your mind. The third type of rest that Dr. Saundra identifies as important is emotional rest, and she defines it like this. Emotional rest is the freedom to authentically express feelings and eliminate people-pleasing behaviors. I think as women, sometimes we are so busy taking care of everybody that sometimes we're not really in touch with the emotions that we're feeling. Even the other day, as I was feeling so discouraged, that was not necessarily a bad thing to get in touch with that and really ask the Lord, what's going on underneath all of this? What is the emotional turmoil that is causing this discouragement? And so I've learned to take those emotions to the Lord, but I've also learned to take them to my husband or to close friends and just say, I know that what I'm feeling isn't always really valid, but it's what I feel. And could you help me sort this out? And I love having those faithful people who can just be sounding boards. But I also think that this people-pleasing behavior can have a lot to do with our lack of emotional rest. As women, we want to be everything for everybody. And when we can't, we feel discouraged. We feel like we failed. And in some ways, we ignore our own emotional needs. And as a result, we begin to feel resentment, frustration, discouragement, all the things that I was feeling the other day when I woke up feeling so down. And so this summer, I'm really hoping to have some quiet times with the Lord to kind of dive deep into some of those feelings, to even use some journaling prompts to kind of dig down through the layers and really discover what is it underneath all of the emotion? What is the lie I'm believing or the fear that is driving me? Because I don't want to live in perpetual chaos in my emotions. I want to find rest there. And finding rest involves getting honest with ourselves, getting honest with God, connecting with people that we love, and yet leaving the people-pleasing behind. And that's a whole nother topic of conversation we'll have to have on this YouTube channel, because people-pleasing can really be a snare and a trap, just as the Word of God says. The next kind of rest that Dr. Saundra advises us to invest in is spiritual rest. And of course, this is one that is so dear to my heart, because I really believe that it isn't until we connect with the Lord on a deeper level that we're going to experience the rest that is our inheritance as His children. Dr. Saundra describes spiritual rest like this. Spiritual rest is the capacity to experience God in all things and to rest and recline in the knowledge of the holy. Oh my goodness, we could spend so much time unpacking this, but this summer, one of the things I really want to do is carve out time again, not just to pour out my heart to God, but allow Him to pour His heart into me, to begin to see Him in all of His glory and His majesty. Because just as the words of that beautiful hymn, "Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus," says, as we look full in His wonderful face, the things of this world will grow strangely dim in the light of His glory and grace. For me, that is having extended times with Him. Sometimes even just going to a park and journaling, reading the Word, going on a prayer walk, just connecting with Him, discussing God with friends and family, and just talking about His goodness and recounting stories of His faithfulness. All of that pours back into that spiritual rest that you and I need. The next type of rest is social rest. Dr. Saundra says social rest is the wisdom to recognize relationships that revive from ones that exhaust, and to learn how to limit exposure to those toxic relationships. Now, I know this can be hard, especially because summer is filled with interactions with family and perhaps people that aren't always easy to be around. But I think it's important to counterbalance those not so healthy relationships with those life-giving friendships, those people that when you're around, you just go away feeling richer and fuller and better. And that's one of the sweet gifts of summer for me, is that I have a chance at our family camp or at church, or even just going out on walks with friends, if I actually walked, which, that could be part of my physical rest that I need to invest in. But begin to connect on a deeper level with those people that just really, really bring you life. The next type of rest is sensory. And oh my goodness, you guys, this is a big one for me. I mentioned that I really need to limit my screen time before bed, but honestly, I need to limit my screen time all day long. One of the things that I've done to try to bring a greater level of sensory rest to my life is to turn off all notifications. I keep an eye out for phone calls and I check my messages periodically throughout the day, but I don't want to be a slave to this gadget. But I also need to turn off the screen altogether. The mindless scrolling, watching YouTube, learning new things, always having my mind stimulated. I've realized I'm addicted to sensory input, thinking that my mind has to be entertained at all times. And can I just tell you, that's not healthy for me. And I bet it's not healthy for you. The last type of rest that Dr. Saundra prescribes is creative rest. And she defines it like this: creative rest is the experience of allowing beauty to inspire awe and liberate wonder. Now, I know that sounds a little bit woo, but I think all of us, even if we're not creative by nature, we were created by a creator who does things in such lavish abundance. And there is something, I think, within us that responds to beauty, that responds to the creativity of God. And so this summer, I'm really wanting to take more time outside. I live in beautiful Southwest Montana, and I live near the mountains. I can look out my front windows and see beauty all around me. But can I be honest? Sometimes I take it for granted and I don't actually engage with it. I don't go out and breathe deeply and allow my gaze just to linger on all of the exquisite beauty that God has made. You might live in the city, you might say, Joanna, there is nothing beautiful around me. Well, hey, maybe there's some pieces of art or music that inspires you. Or maybe like me, you need to take some time this summer and actually create. Perhaps it's pottery, or perhaps you like to do watercolor or oil painting. I don't know what your creative outlet is, or the thing that you've always wanted to learn. Maybe it's guitar, maybe it's playing the piano, and you need to pull out some old piano books and begin just to play and allow the creative rest that comes from actually creating to fill your heart. Well, those are some of the ways that I'm going to spend my Selah summer. And I really hope that the Lord will give you some creative ideas as well. I love what Hebrews 4:9-11 says. There remains then a Sabbath rest for the people of God. For anyone who enters God's rest, the rest that He provides, also rests from their works, just as God did from His. Let us therefore make every effort to enter that rest. Did you hear that? We've got to make an effort to enter into the rest that God provides. It's not just going to happen. We've got to appropriate the gift that has already been given. And if we'll ask the Lord to help us do it, He promises that He will. I hope you have a glorious Selah summer, a space of grace where you can breathe, that you can just be, that you can just rest in the love and the goodness of God. You don't have to perform for Him. You don't have to fix yourself. You get to receive the rest that He's already created for you. And you can receive that rest as life for your soul. Hey, if you have not yet listened to Dr. Saundra's podcast, you can find it right here. And be sure to tune in next week. I'm going to be interviewing Sarah Clarkson about her new book, Reclaiming Quiet. Doesn't that sound good? God bless you, my friend.